And welcome back to the Wallace branch. Today we're working on the Pottsville Hatchery, a gorgeous 100-year-old structure which is east of Mullen, Idaho. The 1900 NP timetable says that there was a spur track here with room for 5 cars, so I decided that that was enough justification for having an industry spur to the hatchery. Basically, this route needs a little bit more operational interest given the long distances involved, so I wanted to be able to deliver a few empties to this hatchery for filling with fish, and then that could be delivered to points east. On Google Maps, this is an isolated but beautiful spot. It's right in the middle of this loop in the NP line. The original structure is still there, along with at least one fish pond from what I can tell from this satellite view. When I started this project, I set a hard limit for myself of no more than 100 assets to create for Wallace and the other towns. And that hard limit eventually slipped to no more than 120 and then to no more than 150. But at some point around there, I felt that I did have enough assets and I didn't need any more. Then I saw this hatchery and I decided it wouldn't be too difficult to add just one more scenery asset to make this spot unique. Even though the structure is plain and not very weathered, it really does feel unique for some reason. This is a small industry, so that makes it a nice build. Not too much need for excessive clutter, foliage, or more extensive assets or towns. Remember how I decided to make just one more asset? Well, what about the fish ponds? And with HD terrain, it should be possible to fill them with water as well. Maybe at a later stage, I could even figure out a way to put in some fish. Then I'm just adding a few more details, and with that, the build is already done. And so that gives us a little extra time for the second switching task of this route, and the first industry to actually be serviced. I'm starting a short 3-car freight of empties from Mullen, and it's only 4 miles from Mullen to Pottsville, from milepost 121 to 117 on the Coeur d'Alene branch timetable. Yes, the auto horn on that intersection is obviously timed incorrectly for the speed I'm traveling here. We'll see what types of speed this location will need in the future. Next, we pass the outskirts of Mullen and the lovely Lookout Inn that I mentioned before, and we can see the Gold Hunter mine right at the edge of town, heading east. These are Northern Pacific GP9s. They're all my own creation, as are the 3 reefers here from the Northern Pacific, ATSF, and the Union Pacific Pacific Fruit Express. None of these are perfect, but none of the others I found on the DLS or elsewhere were perfect either, and that's the joy of Trainz, creating your own assets. All the GP9s have dynamic brakes, and the numberings correspond to the GP9s in the Northern Pacific Fleet that had dynamic brakes. Typically, dynamic brake equipped GP9s were used on the Coeur d'Alene branch and the Rocky Mountain Division, whereas those without dynamic brakes were typically used in Minnesota and other flatter areas of the country. Larson is a gravel pit where I used the color layer to mix things up. The gravel will go to Haugen for a cement facility there, and then the cement will be needed to build I-90 over Lookout Pass. The railroad will carry these commodities that will construct the interstate road infrastructure that will ultimately replace this route. I added an auto horn at that crossing, and it's nice that it seems to work without any adjustment, although it didn't go each time that I crossed it. There were some hiccups here and there. The game froze briefly, and I'm not sure what happened, so I just cut out and added a little transition here. Overall, the game has been performing really fine during most of my recording so far, so I'm not sure what happened today with this recording, but I think it's going to be okay in the future. We'll see. Looking ahead here on the right of the slope is where the interstate highway and the original highway, and of course the Northern Pacific right-of-way, climb up the hillside to Lookout Pass. Coming down the interstate as a kid, I always wondered why the highway and the road didn't go straight up to the end of this valley we're in, towards the low ridge straight ahead, instead of coming down the steep slope from Lookout Pass. And from the interstate, it really seems like that is the lower pass and the easier route up there ahead. But in fact, the Coeur d'Alene does continue up that valley before reaching a mountain pass, which is confusingly called Mullen Pass, not the same one as the one near Helena. And that pass separates the Coeur d'Alene watershed from the Brimstone and Randolph Creek watersheds. A dirt road with switchbacks goes up that side, and so does a power line, but it's actually a higher pass than Lookout, over 5,000 feet elevation, and it's less direct because both the Brimstone and Randolph Creeks, they take sharp turns right after the pass, and there's some up and down if you wanted to go straight on through. So basically, Mullins route over Sohon Pass or St. Regis Pass, and then the railroad and interstate path through Lookout Pass, those paths do make more sense. I don't know if this is how the industry might really be switched out, but I like the idea of running with the locomotives at the head end on both ways. Of course, I'm really looking forward to operating on the route once everything is completed, once all the industries are in place. I have a lot of ideas how that's going to be handled, and I don't know if people who are into build series are going to be also the same people who might be interested in watching operating sessions on this type of layout. But for me, I think I enjoy watching both, so I'm planning to do both. The number of movements is not excessive, in my opinion. And then we finally arrive with the 3 cars for loading. This is the BI3 industry track, so only 1 car loads at a time. These cars don't show any animation when they're being loaded, and I don't think the salmon has a mesh asset anyway. And that's a wrap for this episode. I hope you enjoyed the different content. Next time, we'll continue east, hopping over Lookout Pass to Saltese, and we'll probably have time to look at a couple of the other towns on the route as well. So if you'd like to join, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you again next time on the Wallace Branch.